her alabaster skin is spread across the frame, pillowing out of the silk and curving sharply into her dark hair. The jut of her shoulder blades and the angular tilt of her cocked arm draw the eye irresistibly. So like Alice. She didn't even need to show her face or have a voice to demand complete attention. It had all begun not 6 months before. My chest felt flooded by my own heart. I could hardly speak, hardly breathe the whole way to the hospital, lights flashing over me, my mind careering. They said, "What is your relation to William King?" "What's wrong?" "Are you his wife?" "What's wrong with my brother?" But he was fine. He was fine. I was running down the hospital corridor, shins aching from my heels hitting the floor so hard. I was running when I heard his voice echoing, laughing, saw his downy, taffy-colored hair, his handsome, snubby-nosed profile, his hand rubbing the back of his head as he sat on a gurney, smeary smile on his face. "Lora," he turned, speaking firmly to calm me, to strip the tight fear from my face. Hand out to grab my arm and stop me from plowing clear into him, he said, "I'm fine. I just hit my head, got knocked out, but I'm fine." "Fine," I repeated, as if to fix it. His jacket over his arm, his collar askew, he had, I noted with a shiver, a break of browning blood on his shirt. "Someone hit your car?" "Nah, nearly did, but I swerved out of the way. The driver kept going off the road and into a telephone pole. I stopped to help her, and while I was trying to get her out of her car, another car rear-ended it and knocked us both down. It was some show." He laughed when he said it, which was how I knew the driver was young and pretty and troubling and helpless, all of which seemed suddenly to me to be just what he wanted, what he had been waiting for all along. It happened just like that. I realized it about him just like that, without ever having thought it before. "Is she all right?" "She had a concussion, but she's okay. She sprained her wrist trying to break her fall." He touched his own wrist as he said it, with great delicacy. This gesture confirmed it all. "Why did she veer off the road? What was wrong with her?" "Wrong? I don't know. I never even—" When the sergeant came by to get more details for his report, he told us that the woman, Alice Steele, would be released momentarily. I asked him if she had been drinking, and he said he didn't think so. "No, definitely not. She was completely coherent," my brother assured us both. The young sergeant respectfully nodded. Her eyebrows, plucked and curvilinear like a movie star's, danced around as she spoke. My, how embarrassing! Not just embarrassing, but unforgivable, her actions were. She never should have been driving after taking a sedative, even if it was hours before, and never should have been driving on such a crowded road when she was so upset and crying over some complications in her life, and with a rush to get to her friend Patsy's apartment because Patsy's boyfriend had hit her in the face with an ashtray. And, oh God, she wondered, what had happened to Patsy since she was never able to get there because of the accident? Would Patsy be all right? If there were scars, her modeling career would end in a heartbeat, and that would mean more trouble for Patsy, who'd had more than her share already. Watching, listening, I imagined that this would be how this new woman in my brother's life would always talk, would always be. As it turned out, however, she rarely spoke so hazardously, so immoderately. She had a small wound on her forehead, like a scarlet lip. It was this wound, I calculated, that had flowed onto my brother's shirt front. A nurse was sewing stitches into it with long, sloping strokes. The entire time, she spoke to me. I tried not to watch too closely as the wound transmuted from labial, soft and deep red, to a thin, sharp, cross-hatched line with only a trace of pucker. The nurse kept murmuring, don't move," as Alice gestured, twisting with every turn of phrase, never wincing, only offering an occasional squint at the inconvenience. Lora King," I answered. "You're the wife of my knight in shining armor?" "No, the sister." I'm Alice. Alice Steele. You're smiling. No, not at you. Where is that heroic brother of yours, anyway? Don't tell me he's left. No, he's here. He's waiting. A smile appeared quickly and then disappeared, as if she decided it gave away too much, as if she thought I didn't know. The three of us in my sedan. I drove them to Bill's car, which was unharmed. I knew he would offer to drive her home, and he did, and they vanished into his sturdy Chevy like circling dangers. Patty Page trilled from the radio of his car as it drove off. I sat and listened until I couldn't hear it any longer. Then I drove home. At first, it was the pretext of checking on her recovery. Then it was his friend Alice who needed a ride to the studio where she worked in the costume department as a seamstress's assistant. She lived with a girlfriend named Joan in a rooming house somewhere downtown. Then it was Alice who had bought him the new tie he wore, with the thin periwinkle stripe. Next, it was Alice with whom he'd had chop suey because he happened to be by the studio around lunchtime. At last, it was Alice over for dinner, wearing a gold blouse and heels, and bringing a basket of pomegranates spiced with rum. I prepared ham with pineapple rings and scalloped potatoes, and a bowl of green beans with butter. Alice smoked through the whole meal, sipping elegantly from her glass and seeming to eat, but never getting any closer to the bottom of her plate. She listened to my brother avidly, eyes shimmering, and complimented me on everything, her shoe dangling from her foot, faintly, but ceaselessly. It would be true in all the time I knew Alice that she would never, ever stop moving. She asked many questions about our childhood, the different places we'd lived, our favorite homes, how we'd ended up in California, and why we'd stayed. She asked me if I enjoyed teaching high school and how we'd found such a lovely house and if we liked living away from downtown Los Angeles. She asked me where I got my hair done and if I sewed and whether I enjoyed having a yard because she had always lived in apartments and had never had more than a potted plant and no green thumb besides. But who cares about all that? Tell me instead about how you keep such lovely petunias in this dry weather, and does Bill help at all, or is he too busy playing cops and robbers? With a wink and blinding smile toward my rapt brother. Chapter 2. 5 months to the day after they met, they decided to marry. The night they told me, I remember there had been a tug over my eye all day, a persistent twitch that wouldn't give. Driving to the restaurant to meet them, I feared the twitch would come at the wrong moment and send me headlong into oncoming traffic. As I walked in, she was facing my freshly shaved and bright-faced brother, who was all shine and smile. I saw her shoulders rise like a blooming heart out of an hourglass puce-colored dress. He was towering over her, and she was adjusting his pocket square with dainty fingers. From the shimmer lining my dear brother's face, from the tightness in his eyes, I knew it was long over. The day before they were married, we moved Alice's things from the rooming house in which she'd been living for over a year. It was a large place in Bunker Hill, a house that had once been very grand and now had turned shaggy, with a bucket of sand for cigarettes at the foot of its spiraling mahogany staircase. Apparently, Bill had been trying to get her to move out since he first visited her there. "I know places like this. I spend days knocking down the doors of places like this," he had told her. "It's no place for you." But according to him, she only laughed and touched his arm and said he should have seen her last place, in a bungalow court where, the first night she spent there, a man stabbed his girlfriend in the stomach with her knitting needle, or a fork, she couldn't remember which. She was all right, Alice had assured him. It wasn't deep. When we helped her pack up, I noticed how many clothes Alice had, and how immaculately she kept them, soft sweaters nestled in stacks of plastic sleeves, hat boxes interlocked like puzzle pieces in the top of her closet, shoes and felt bags, heels stroked in cotton tufts to keep them from being scratched by the hanging shoe tree, dresses with pillowy skirts tamed by sweeping curls of tissue paper or shells of crinkly crepe. Alice smiled warmly as I marveled at each glorious confection. She said she accumulated most of the clothes from her work at the studio. The seamstresses